Okay, so everything we do movement-wise is about where's the increased pressure is located in my feet. Let's look at that just a little bit more. Now, as we talked about in the previous video, if I move my shoulders forward, the pressure moves forward in my feet. If I move my shoulders back, the pressure moves back in my feet. It's not rocket science. If I move my shoulders to one side, the pressure moves in my feet towards that side, and the same is true the other side. So we need to control where these are, and we need to keep them steady to keep that pressure steady. So as an example, for those of you that are moving around like this, that pressure is constantly moving in your feet, and that is causing your body to want to move in all sorts of crazy directions. And that's a big problem that you have. You need to be able to control where that pressure is by controlling your posture, controlling your shoulders to be able to hold them stable. In a previous video, I talked about having the pressure towards the ball of your foot, keeping it there, transferring the pressure on, transferring your body weight to just one foot. And as the one foot lifts, all the body weight goes to one foot and your body automatically starts moving forward. So let's talk about how that pressure works on the floor. But to get there, first I want to talk about what your feet are doing. There are two terms that we're going to be using. If the first one is what the physical flatness of your feet are, and the other is what is the functional angle of your feet to the floor. Physical. That's what your feet look like on the floor. This floor happens to be smooth and hard, flat. My feet are completely in contact with the floor, so they are physically flat on the floor. The weight is evenly distributed. All of the surface of the bottom of my feet are on the floor. Okay. What does physical flatness of your feet on the floor have to do with movement? And the answer is nothing. However, the functional flatness or the functional angle of your feet to the floor has everything to do with movement. And that is because the functional flatness or angle of your foot to the floor refers to the pressure that's in your foot. And specifically, it refers to where the location of the increased pressure is in that foot. Because where that is sets the functional angle of the foot to the floor. That may sound complicated, but let me simplify that. Let me go get a prop. And with this, we're going to make sense of the functional angle or how your feet function on the floor. Let's say this white little tray is a foot. And let's say that this ruler is pointing where the pressure is being directed into the floor. So I have it pretty much in the middle right now, and I'm holding this tray pretty flat, I think, so that pressure is directed straight down into the floor. What this means is I have my foot flat on the floor and the pressure is completely evenly distributed throughout the foot. So everything, all that pressure on my foot is pushing the foot straight down. What's important about that with the movements of our body? Well, if I hold that pressure right there, if I hold my shoulders in position so this pressure does not move away from the center of my foot, then if I squat and then stand back up, holding that pressure in the middle of my foot. The only way my body can move is straight down and straight up, because the pressure is pushing straight down. And let me add this: every movement we do, even standing, begins with a push down into the floor, and it continues with a push down to the floor. So as I'm pushing that pressure down to the floor, as I am moving down, I'm using leg muscles and increasing that pressure. I'm pushing down, but all of it's going straight down, so my body just collapses straight down. Now, when I'm coming up, I'm also pushing into the floor to push my body up. Well, if I hold this pressure right here in the center of my feet, the only way my body can come up is straight up. Okay, let's say we want to walk forward, and we move that pressure towards the ball area of our foot. What happens to the functional angle of this foot, of this tray? Well, it doesn't stay flat anymore, because as I move my shoulders forward, the angle of the foot starts to change according to the pressure. Looking at it on the floor, it still looks flat on the floor. That's why physically flat doesn't mean squat to the movement, because now as I move my shoulders forward, there's more pressure in the front than there is in the back. The heel is lighter than the ball area. So now, what's going to happen when I push more pressure into this foot? In other words, what's going to happen to this pressure going into the floor when I move onto that, just that one foot, when I increase that pressure even more? Well, this foot is going to angle a little bit more, and now this pressure is not going straight down into the floor. So when it pushes, the foot is going to be pushing at an angle down and backward. That's what pushes your body forward. The pressure you apply to the ball area of your foot pushes backward, and your body moves forward. So what happens when you bring your shoulders back? Same thing, just the opposite. Now, that pressure is pushing forward and your body goes backward. So let's make a clarification here. When you are tipping or stumbling or falling forward or backwards or to the side, it's not because you fell forward or backwards. It's because you pushed yourself backwards. The pressure was in the wrong place in the foot for what you wanted to do, and or you couldn't control what you were trying to do. And that pressure is what pushed you backwards. Now, let's take an example. Many of you, when you're trying to get up from a chair, from sitting, you fall back into the chair before you can stand up. Or when you're sitting down into the chair, you fall back into it, you plop down into it. Now, did you fall into the chair? No, you pushed yourself into the chair, because when you were trying to get up, you still had pressure back here in your heel. And your heel, being increased in pressure, was pushing you backwards as you were trying to come forward and stand up. So where did the pressure need to be? To be able to do that? To be able to stand up and not fall back in the chair? To be able to sit down and not fall back in the chair? The pressure needed to be here in the center. So when you came down or when you came up, your body stayed where you wanted it to be. So if you're trying to sit down with that pressure towards your heels, you're pushing yourself backward. So many of the mysteries of why you do all that crazy stuff that you do, it's not really the mystery that you have thought it to be. For example, so many of you, and I used to say the same thing, 1 second I'm doing fine, and the next I fell. I'm over here, I'm over there, I'm I'm picking my head up off the floor. Suddenly, I just fell. I have no clue why I fell. Well, yes, you do. Now you do. It's because your shoulders moved and put that pressure in the wrong place in your foot. You weren't prepared for it. Your body couldn't respond to it. And you pushed yourself into that fall. There's a big point with that. Anytime you fall, anytime you have a mistake, you know exactly why you fell. So how do you know? It's all about the functional angle. All you have to know is which way did my body move. Okay, let's say backward. Well, that tells you immediately that the increased pressure was located in your heels and you pushed yourself backwards. So instead of the big mystery, I have no clue why I fell. Now you know. I fell backwards. The increased pressure was in my heels. Now the question is for you to answer, why was that pressure increased in my heels? Oh, it's because my shoulders were back too far. So what's the correction? What should have the correction been before that happened? Well, I should have moved my shoulders a little bit further forward. And or, okay, this is a learning curve. I fell backwards because I pushed myself backwards because my shoulders were back. So if I want to stop doing that, I need to have my shoulders, keep my shoulders a little bit forward to keep that pressure in the center of my foot. So that is a very simple way of understanding why you're doing a lot of the stupid stuff you're doing when you're on your feet. There is a simple answer for everything you're doing. When you understand how the pressures work on the floor and how your body adjusts them and what you need to do to correct them. Knowing that little bit will help you gain a little bit more stability to help you work on making it even better as you learn to relax more, control upper body movement, to control this pressure in your feet. The functional angle of your foot is everything. It's not a mystery. It's a lot of common sense when you understand the practical nature of how our body is set up to allow us to do all the wonderful things that we can. Stick with me, there's a lot more to come. Let's go get to it.